Hello and welcome back to Forza Motorsport. Now in this video, we're going to be checking out the Nurburgring Nordschleife for our very first time and of course, taking a look at what the Nurburgring looks like when it is, I'm going to say it, built from, I'm sorry, what was that? Built from the ground up. And that is, of course, not to say that there is anything wrong with this version of the Nurburgring Nordschleife, but I kind of wanted to include that in there just for the, for the memes of it all. And if you're wondering why you're not hearing any game sound, I have a reason for that as well. And that reason is honestly very simple. For whatever reason, the Elgato that I recorded this gameplay with decided to include random audio spikes in the final recording. So let's just say that unless you want your eardrums absolutely exploded, and I mean literally exploded, I mean they pinged my audio levels so high that I honestly hadn't seen levels that high in a long time, and unfortunately it didn't display these spikes while I was actually recording the gameplay footage, and I was only able to find out about them once I got this gameplay into the edit. And with all of that out of the way, let's dive into what I like and don't like about this version of the Nurburgring Nordschleife. And honestly, I think we should start with the things I do like, because there are a lot of them. So I like the more densely populated woods, and I also like the increased presence of crowds on the side of the track. Now, if you've played the Forza Motorsport 7 version of the Nordschleife, you'll know that it was a little almost dead feeling, especially in terms of visuals when you compared it to some of the other variants of this track that you can find in other comparable games. And honestly, seeing the increased presence of both trackside objects, trees, people, and, various tents and things like that, it honestly made the drive a lot more enjoyable, although you will also have people that will argue that on a track as in depth as the Nürburgring, they don't necessarily want to worry about stuff on the side of the track to look at, which honestly, I can understand where you're coming from with that, because a lot of the mistakes that I made across the course of this lap were in large part due to the fact that I was looking off at some cool detail in the distance. So, is the increased trackside detail a good thing? Honestly, I would say yes, but is it also extremely distracting if you're taking your first few laps? Also, yes. However, you could also argue that increased trackside detail is actually more realistic, because if you ever watch some of the actual races at the Nürburgring, the sides of the track in a lot of areas are lined with people and tents and photographers and various spectators and emergency crews. And honestly, I feel like if you're racing on the Nürburgring, you're going to have to contend with the fact that some of that stuff might be a little distracting. So now that we've talked about the trackside details, let's go into another subject that I've been seeing kind of get floated around in various parts of the community, and that is I see a lot of comments about how some people feel as though the Nürburgring coming to the game now in February of 2024 is a little bit of a too little too late type of situation. And if you're one of the people that do feel that way, let me know in the comments down below, because I've seen a lot more of that in various social media channels than I thought I was going to. In fact, I saw a lot of people that were saying that the Nürburgring not only was too little too late, but that they already uninstalled the game and have no intent to reinstall it. And honestly, on one hand, I can totally see where they're coming from, especially if you feel like, almost like you have been wronged by the game itself, because there were people that feel like they were either wronged by the game's marketing or feel like they were wronged by the car progression system, or feel like they were wronged by the online issues or the PC issues. And honestly, I could keep going on down the list, but I'm just not going to, because so many people have honestly made videos about their grievances with this game that it almost feels a little pointless at this point to kind of just keep hammering away at that. And obviously you're going to have people that are just going to say the game is just bad and I don't need to elaborate. And while I will definitely say that the game has gotten better since launch, I don't know if the advancements that have been made are enough to swing this game back in the other direction, because I do believe that at its core, it is a good game. It does have a good physics system underneath it, and it fills a role in the sort of almost simcade racer that Xbox has been needing a new one of for some time now. However, I just don't know, because the vibe around this game in the overall community has gotten so bad that it has gotten so bad and so hostile that honestly, I mean, and you can go and look on YouTube, for example, some of the most heavily viewed videos on the topic of Forza Motorsport have been videos about how bad the game supposedly is. And on the other side of that, we actually see people getting a lot of pushback whenever they attempt to talk about some of the positive aspects of the game, where people will say almost things like, well, sure, that's a small positive, but it doesn't really matter because you have this negative and this negative and this negative over here that cancel your positive out. And honestly, what I'm just trying to get at is that really beyond anything else, it just seems like the vibe around this game is so pessimistic from so many people. But at the same time, I kind of noticed that there has been a very pessimistic vibe overall towards racing games in general, and there has been throughout the past few years, and I think a lot of that has boiled over with the release of Forza Motorsport being as rocky as it has been. And I think a lot of people are like, yep, that's it. That's the game right there that I can take out all of my frustrations with this genre on. And that is, of course, not to say that those frustrations are not completely valid, because they absolutely are. And I 100% believe that if you are frustrated with a series or with a direction that a series you like is going, I 100% believe that you should voice those opinions. Although I think a lot of people like to use this game as more of a punching bag than anything else. And while I think this game has a long road ahead of it, in terms of really regaining that community support, I definitely think the addition of the Nurburgring Nordschleife was a necessary step in that. And now I want to talk about something that I noticed as I was driving around the track, and it almost made me wonder if some of y'all noticed this as well. Now, I almost wonder if the scale of the track itself seems a little, I don't know if I would necessarily say different from the real world, but because I know it's not going to be, pinpoint perfect accurate. Although it felt a little bit small. The lap itself felt a little bit short. And when I looked at the race timer, it didn't necessarily seem all that unrealistic of a time, especially from a standing start. However, when I was driving the lap, I don't know what it was. It just kind of felt like a smaller version of the Nürburgring. It felt like someone took the actual Nürburgring and shrunk it down. And again, I don't know why it felt like that, because again, if you look at the race timer, it's a fairly realistic time for a car like this to have around the Nürburgring. So the timer is accurate, and yet the track almost feels a little bit small in terms of scale. And I don't know if that's just kind of like my own brain or if that's something that other people have experienced as well. But let me know in the comments down below if you feel like the scale of the track itself feels a little on the small side in terms of, you know, the time that your car posts versus what it actually feels like to drive around the track in the game. I don't know. The lap itself feels shorter than the time would suggest. However, that is going to do it for my initial impressions of the Nurburgring Nordschleife and Forza Motorsport. And of course, let me know any other thoughts and opinions or requests that y'all would like to make in those comments down below. And if you would like to see more videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on. And I will see y'all next time.